the reason I'm spouting off all this context is artificial sweeteners are many things. So I'd like to talk about their effects on blood sugar in the acute sense and according to what we might ingest them with, and how they might be changing blood sugar regulation at the level of brain and or body. And then the gut microbiome data I think are interesting enough to discuss. Yep. And I have changed my view on artificial sweeteners based on what you've taught me. So this is a case where I've completely changed my view, which is that now I don't have any problem with them whatsoever based on the current data, which is not to say that I'm, gulping down cupfuls of sucralose, but I feel okay ingesting some stevia and some aspartame, and I'm not too worried about it.
Yeah. So I think kind of stepping back from a broad view, we have to think about, again, the hierarchy of importance, right? And what are you replacing with, right? So there is no situation where it is not a net positive to take somebody who drinks sugar-sweetened beverages and have them drink an artificially sweetened beverage. Like in the meta-analysis, there was actually a recent network meta-analysis looking at markers of adiposity, HbA1c, a bunch of different health markers. And when you substitute, we'll call it non-nutritive sweeteners since stevia is not artificial. But so when you substitute NNS for the sugar-sweetened beverages, you see improvements in a lot of different things, okay? What was really interesting about this network meta-analysis was they also looked at water substitution in place of sugar-sweetened beverages, and the effect wasn't as powerful and these are randomized control trials.
So artificial sweetener-containing beverages are more beneficial?
Were better for adiposity, for improving adiposity, and then in the health markers, it was kind of a wash. Water and non-nutritive sweetener beverages performed similar, but they were better than sugar-sweetened beverages, obviously. So they then, based on a network meta-analysis, is kind of where you can compare two things that didn't get compared directly. So there's not many studies comparing NNS versus water directly. But if you have a common comparator, so if you compare A to B and B gets compared to C, you can compare A to C based on how they interacted with B. I'm butchering it a little bit, but that's kind of the crux of a network meta-analysis. So they looked at NNS versus water and found that actually NNS was slightly better for improving adiposity.
NNS, of course, being non-nutritive sweeteners.
Right.
Yeah.
So now, again, if you like drinking water and you don't want to, I'm not trying to convince anybody to do that. What that seems to suggest is there is a little bit of an appetite suppressant effect from these artificial sweeteners or non-nutritive sweeteners. Now, this gets a little bit more complicated because if these were people drinking sugar-sweetened beverages, maybe they've already developed a sweet taste and trying to go to water is too much of a jump for them. And so going to having something like intermediate is a little bit better. Like there's a lot wrapped up in this. But these are the randomized control trials, which are a little bit more tightly controlled, which I tend to default to a little bit more than I do the epidemiology, which epidemiology is just so messy because sure, non-nutritive sweetener consumption may be associated with different things, but there's also a whole nother set of lifestyle and habits that are tied up in that. So I tend to hang my hat a little bit more on the randomized control trials. So understanding that, okay, now all things being equal, understanding that this is a tool that may help some people, and whenever I post about non-nutritive sweeteners in the comments, there's always one or two or three people who say, all I did was cut out soda and I drank diet soda instead and I lost 50 pounds or I lost 75 pounds. I even had 1%. I lost 100 pounds. That's the only thing I did.
Wow.
I mean, that's a pretty massive lever to pull. If you consider somebody who might be having 5 or 6 Cokes a day, I mean, that's, we're talking a serious amount of calories.
And that also means that by replacing with artificial sweetener containing beverages, they did not replace the soda with food.
Correct.